Ladies and gentlemen, here in this video, I will share with you, as always, your Tesla stock news today. Tesla is up close to 2% at the time of recording this video, but I think the thing that stands out to me the most today is the markets are actually going higher on bad news. That is normally a sign of a bottoming process, and I'll explain and share the headlines throughout this video. But let's kick off with some of your Tesla news. Tesla has put 2 megapack chargers with 16 charging stalls to handle the extra load of people at Coachella, an estimated 250,000 people or more that go every year. The FBI has made an arrest in connection to the February firebombing of a New Mexico Tesla dealership. The Justice Department says, "We will be prosecuting to the fullest extent of the law. We are seeking up to 40 years in prison with no negotiation." 5 years after debuting Indiana's first Tesla police car, the Bargersville Police Department said it has saved them nearly $500,000 in maintenance and repairs. And it's official, Tesla's spring 2025 update is now starting to roll out to owners. And the first ever Tesla sales, service, and delivery center in New Hampshire officially opened today. Tesla customers in New Hampshire will soon be able to take direct delivery of their vehicles at a local Tesla location, something that wasn't possible in New Hampshire before. This is a 50,200 square foot building that is located in Londonderry and contains offices, a sales area, and service bays, as well as about 300 parking spaces. Lucid said they are on track to launch their midsize electric SUV in 2026. Company executives said today, they said, quote, "There are a lot of crazy things going on in the world that can affect that timeline, but currently we are on track," said Derek Jenkins, senior vice president at Lucid. Honda is considering switching some of their car production from Mexico and Canada to the US, aiming for 90% of cars sold in the country to be made locally in response to new US auto tariffs. A study finds that Trump's tariffs to increase automaker cost by $108 billion in 2025. Tesla has initiated its first substantial international shipment of the new Model Y. The Panama Ro-Ro vessel Great Pioneering has docked at Shanghai's Nangang terminal to transport 3,499 Teslas, with the new Model Y accounting for 3,015 units. Elon Musk shares this post on X. It's from Mario Nafal that says Tesla outsold the next 10 EV brands combined in Q1 2025. Tesla remained far ahead of competition in Q1 2025, selling 128,100 EVs, more than the next 10 brands combined. Overall, EV sales in the US grew to nearly 300,000 units, with Tesla driving the momentum forward. Elon Musk shares this post and says, "Not bad," and tags Tesla. Here on the day today, you have 1.2 million shares that are being covered on, with virtually no shares being sold short. It says literally 70 shares have been sold short today, and 1.2 million that have been returned or covered on. Now, Tesla's short interest has also started to fall from the highs of about 2.94% down to now 2.74%, which is actually a reduction of billions of dollars worth of short positions. Currently, dollar amount sold short at $19.35 billion. Option activity today in Tesla, though, is not as good as you would think, given the stock is up almost 2% at the time of recording this video. You have 71 different trades totaling $26.14 million with a positive order value of 36%. So definitely could be better, but hey, the numbers don't tend to finalize until after hours anyways. Tesla's global inventory levels continue to be at very, very low levels, especially for the Model Y, which is now the lowest product in global inventories, only at about 1,200 units. The Model S at 1,300, Cybertruck at 2,400, Model X at 2,600, and the Model 3 at 3,700. This suggests to me there's a lot of good demand. Because, again, if you're not building up inventory, that means you're likely selling everything you're producing pretty fast. Tesla continues to run about 2,000 different ads with Google, and Google Trends, we can see, give this a second to refresh, are actually starting to curl upwards a little bit, but you're kind of in line with where you were last year to the most extent. Cybertruck at 15, Model Y at 17, Model 3 at 15, Model S at 7, and the Model X at 4. This is not what I would call like super strong, but it's not bad either. Now let me share some of these headlines that sound like bad news, but the markets are not reacting to them, which is typically one of the first signs that a real bottom is actually in, when markets start to ignore bad news and move up anyways. Now, keep in mind, whether or not the real bottom is in is going to come down to what the economy does. It's going to come down to, are we going into a recession? Are we not? That's the simplest way that you can put this. I think Wall Street right now is assuming there's going to be deals done on tariffs. If there's not, then that's also a big problem, because we're already kind of pricing in these deals that will get done. In fact, the bad news today is bad news on these potential trade deals. Trump now plans to impose 21% tariffs on most tomatoes from Mexico. Trump said this on China. He said, interestingly, they just reneged on the big Boeing deal, saying they will not take possession of fully committed to aircrafts. So basically, they had orders and now they're canceling them. And Trump criticizes China for backing out of the Boeing deal. Trump says China was brutal to U.S. farmers, and he says the U.S. will protect farmers. Canada's Prime Minister Carney says President Trump is attacking our auto sector. And the Canadian Prime Minister says, quote, we can't provide guarantees for every situation. The EU expects U.S. tariffs to remain as discussions make little progress. Again, this is one of those headlines that you would have sold off on previously, but didn't seem like the markets cared too much about this today. Also reported today, Foxconn sent the highest amount ever of iPhones in a month, worth $1.3 billion from India to the US ahead of Trump tariffs. Bloomberg reports today that Donald Trump's 25% auto tariffs are a hefty blow to Japanese automakers, with struggling Nissan the most exposed. China's Customs Administration says we're holding meetings with trade businesses and industry associations. Now, Zelensky today says talks with the U.S. on mineral deals were positive, with more meetings to come. Mexico says that they will try dialogue about tomatoes. U.S. Department Treasury Secretary Falkender says, quote, I predict tariff negotiations will work out. And Canada will provide temporary 6-month relief from counter tariffs for goods imported from the U.S. that are used in manufacturing, processing, and food and beverage packaging. Also in the news today, the U.S. government's ability to manage its cash flow to pay its bills on time will run out sometime between mid-July and early October unless Congress lifts the debt ceiling, per a bipartisan policy center. Johnson & Johnson CEO says pharmaceutical tariffs can create disruptions in the supply chain, leading to shortages. M&I reports today that EU-China EV resolution hopes dim after U.S. threats. The European Union is likely to suspend its efforts to reach a resolution with China over its tariffs on electric vehicle imports, pending the outcome of ongoing EU-US tariff negotiations, the EU trade sources said. So this actually looks like Europe's leaning more towards the US on this one. It says here, quote, any kind of deal with China could be seen as ganging up on the US, one person familiar with the matter said. So it seems like they're leaning towards, being friendly to us. But again, that doesn't help the negotiations with China. Citigroup CFO says there's obviously a great deal of uncertainty around tariffs, deregulation, and tax policy, which is putting downward pressure on growth. But Bank of America's CEO had something positive to say today. He said the consumer keeps pushing money into the economy. So, that's a better headline to hear for sure. We did get export prices month over month today that came in at 0%. The forecast was positive 0.2%. Import prices month over month came in at negative 0.1% versus estimates of positive 0.1%. New York Empire State Manufacturing Index came in at negative 8.10. The estimate was negative 18. So a little bit better than expected, but This thing is always negative, and it's soft data. Keep that in mind. Tomorrow is the big day for markets. We get retail sales at 8:30 in the morning. You're expecting a really strong number, anywhere from 1.1% month over month to 1.3% positive month over month. So that's going to be very important. Why? Because it could, solidify whether or not Q1 GDP is going to be negative or positive. If you exclude gold in the alternative model forecast, which the Atlanta Fed GDP Now tracker does provide, you're coming in at negative 0.3%. Now, I don't know exactly how the GDP report is going to play out. They don't exactly exclude gold. So, including gold imports, you're negative 2.4%. Okay, so you're negative from that regard. But if retail sales come in good for March, that could really boost some of these numbers. Even if it's still negative, it may not be as negative. Now, if retail sales come in bad, then I think that really solidifies a negative Q1 GDP report. Yeah, sure, you're going to get other data that's going to come out, but retail sales is a huge component of the GDP report. So I think that will be very important coming out tomorrow. You do have the Bank of Canada interest rate decision and the policy report. That's probably not going to move markets too much. Again, we have our own data to worry about. Fed Jerome Powell speaks at 1:30 p.m. tomorrow as well. So what does Powell have to say about all of this? Is he, more concerned about inflation still? Is he concerned about the economy? Has Powell changed his stance at all? That's really what markets want to figure out from that speech tomorrow with Powell. So retail sales and Powell, that's really going to probably determine the rest of this week, right? I think it could cause a big move to the upside or a big move to the downside. You also, again, have some earnings today and after hours: United Interactive Brokers and JB Hunt. Wednesday pre-market, ASML, US Bancorp, Abbott, Progressive, Citizens Financial, and First Horizon Bank. Wednesday and after hours, Alcoa, Bank of Ozark, CSX, Kinder Morgan. And then Thursday, you have TSMC, Huntington, United Health Group, American Express, and Ally Bank. And then Thursday and after hours, you have Netflix and Lockheed Martin. Now, I think this is interesting because TSMC is usually not like a super important earnings, but right now with the uncertainty around growth and what AI CapEx is going to look like, TSMC is going to tell us a lot about potentially NVIDIA's earnings. And that is still a very large company, last I checked, and will have a large impact on our market. So TSMC, if they have a good or bad report, that's really going to determine how Thursday's trading evolves into Friday. The CNN Fear and Greed Index today is coming in at 20. This is much better than where we were a week ago when you were at 3. Okay, so, now it's at 21. You're almost out of extreme fear. Market momentum, extreme fear. Stock price strength, extreme fear. Stock price breadth, extreme fear. Put and call options, extreme fear. Market volatility is now only neutral as the VIX is now below 30. Safe haven demand in extreme fear and junk bond demand is now neutral. Percent of stocks trading above their 50-day moving average is up to about 19%, which is much better than where we were at the lows when 5% of stocks were trading above their 50-day moving average. But still, this is a weak level. Like, this is not a strong market by any means. Markets rising on bad news today could be suggestive of more strength in markets, investors being a little bit more confident to go out and buy stocks. But I think time will only tell there. Now, what is also going to be fascinating this week is the AI investor sentiment survey that will come out on Thursday. You still have very high level of bears, 58.9%, neutral investors at 12.5%, and bullish investors at 28.5%. Like, there's not a lot of neutral investors. People have chosen a side. Do the bears drop? Because still above 50% is crazy high. on a historical basis. The historical average is 31%. So you're literally still almost double that. And markets have started to, recover quite a bit from the lows, albeit we were only there briefly at about 481. The S&P is up about 12.3%. So it's been a stronger move than a lot of people even realize. But the bears continue to be, the dominant force in that AI investor sentiment survey. Now, for Tesla specifically, it seems like we're getting a lot of resistance here over the past 4 trading days or so around this 20-day moving average at around $257. You really want to get above that, and then we can start talking about potentially moves to the, 50-day moving average at 286 or the 200-day moving average at 291. If you can get above this level, that opens the door for larger upside. And I think that's why you're seeing so much resistance here, is because, you're going to move big once you get above that level. And with Tesla's earnings coming next week, I don't think people want to make a huge judgment call and go in with a large position before those earnings. I really think it's going to be a volatile event next week. I think Tesla's set up well for that, and I think Tesla will likely move higher on those earnings. But for now, people are kind of just waiting for that big event. Now, you can see you've been making a series of, intraday drops that have been getting smaller and smaller every day. You can see over the past 4 days, you fell to 239 4 days ago. 3 days ago, you fell to 241. Yesterday, you fell to 245. And today, you only fell to like 247, something like that. In the beginning of trading, the low is 247.55. So you are, starting to form what looks like a positive pattern over the last couple of days. But again, that's not definitive enough to say what's going to come next. But it does make me lean towards a rally to the upside. So let me know what you guys think about all of this information down below in the comments section. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.